This is a Kwikset 914 SmartCode door lock. It's Z-Wave enabled. So we're going to do an unboxing video, show you what's inside, and we're going to install it on the door. So instead of showing you the entire unboxing process, I'm just going to unbox it, lay the pieces out here on the table, and I'll be right back. So that's what we have in the box. Basically, your keypad mechanism, support for the back side of it, your latch, hardware kit, inside mechanism, 4-pack of batteries. Comes with Radiovacs. These will probably last a lithium while. I've put lithiums in most of mine. First time it dies, it'll last a lot longer. And then this is your inside mechanism. Now they have updated some of these newer locks. They actually have how to change the codes and how to add codes on the inside of the lid. Before you always had to dig the directions out or had to remember how to do it, so that makes life a lot easier. But I'll show you how to do that once we get it installed. So if you've never put a deadbolt in before, especially one of these, normally you have to set your orientation of your lock. On this one, there's no orientation to set. Once you put the batteries in and power it up the first time, it actually sets the orientation of the lock. So this part goes into the door first. It actually says up on it. So you would slide this into the door. There's a D-shaped hole in the back of this. You would line that up with your lock. So this would slide through this way. And then your inside mechanism will go through the door, plug in, and then again, D-shaped mechanism on here will line up, and you just rotate it if it's out of alignment. And again, the door lock's going to stick out, but the first time you power it up, it'll automatically set the alignment. The other thing, if your door's already drilled, which mine is, if you turn this, you'll notice this gets longer or shorter. So all you have to do, if you're not set properly, is turn that deeper or shallower. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is insert this. You're going to need this package right here. This has screws N and P in it. It says use both or one or the other, depending on what you have in there now. If you've got a lock that's in there now and the hole's already stripped, the longer screws are for that, so you can actually drill it in deeper into the door. Sorry, the lighting's not quite as good over here. So basically, I'm going to take my mechanism upside, it says up on it, through the hole. The hole should line up in the middle of the door. If not, pull it back out, twist it like I showed you if the hole is deeper into the door. I'm going to use my longer screws. I'm going to run those in. So next step after that, we're going to take the brass ring. This is going to go on, you'll see it's got a groove in it, left to right of that. Then we're going to take the mechanism, we're going to slide it through with our D shape through there. So this is going to go on here. Make sure you get your wire through there. We're going to line up the D ring. Wire goes underneath the mechanism. Line up the D and just kind of hold that in place. Next thing, you want the long brass screws. And you want this piece, which is on the back of your inside mechanism. There's an inset. The inset goes to the inside of the door, so this actually fits up in the hole. So from the inside, the little groove at the bottom is where the wire goes. We're going to put the wire through the hole here. This drops down into the little groove at the bottom. Again, sorry for the lighting, there's not very much light in here. The long screws go through the holes here. And I just hand start them first, that way my lock doesn't fall to the other side. And again, you'll have to kind of manipulate the front lock and the inside at the same time, so they line up properly. And you'll feel when you get it. If you pull back on the screw, it won't come back out. So that one's in. And that one's in. So you can let go without it falling through the door. So I'm going to tighten this up. As I tighten this up, I want to make sure that I look on the outside of the door before I snug it all the way up and make sure my lock is straight up and down. So again, tightening the brass bolts on the inside. Just going to run them in a little bit here first. And it's snug where it won't fall or won't move, but it won't fall out of the door. I'm going to look on the outside. My lock is straight up and down. If not, you just turn the lock a little bit once you get it where you want. Same thing on the inside. Make sure your plate's up and down on the inside. And then just take your screwdriver, impact, and finish snugging that up. So before I put the inside on, I want to take my key. I want to turn the lock and make sure it actually turns and operates freely, which it does. If it doesn't, you need to take that back loose and then readjust it. So I'm going to turn it so the deadbolt's out. I'm going to leave the deadbolt in the locked position. I'm going to push the door shut a little bit. You got a small package. It says U on the instructions. I don't see a U on here anywhere. It says 49191-00. It's the only one with 2 screws in it. I like the instructions actually show the screws. If I can get my hand out there. So I've got 2 screws, and basically they'll go through the side of this and into this mounting plate. So all I'm going to do is take the wire. I'm going to connect my wire. And there is only one side that goes up. There's a white paint mark on it. White paint mark on it. It only fits in one way, but the paint actually helps you line it up properly. I'm going to take your excess wire and fold it in this pocket. This is probably the trickiest part, so you don't pinch your wire. And then as you do, remember your D shape will line up onto this. You may have to turn the lock a little bit to line up the D. Once you get it lined up, straighten it up, then your lock should push back in. If it doesn't push back in easily, make sure you didn't pinch your wire in there, or make sure there's nothing in the way to keep it from pushing on there. After that, we're going to put a screw in the bottom here and a screw in the bottom on the other side. And again, if your back part doesn't push on easy, take it back off and check it, because most likely you've got the wire pinched in there or something's not in place. So the next thing we want to do after that is we want to set the hand of the door, which means left hand or right hand. Again, it does it automatically. You need to remove the battery pack. Do not drop the battery pack in yet. Don't get ahead of yourself, because if you do, you've got to basically unprogram the lock and start all over again. So I'm putting the batteries in, but I'm not going to drop them in yet. So batteries in the battery pack. This way faces the door. It says door on it. Before you do that, check this little cam in the back. It should be shaped like a triangle, like a pyramid. So line at the top, line left, line right, and the bottom smooth. Once you get that in there, you need to press the lock button at the top of your lock. While you're holding the lock, drop in the battery pack. So I'm pushing the lock button, drop in the battery pack. When you do that, it'll make a lot of grunting and grinding. And then it'll actually set the orientation to show how deep the lock should go. When it's done, it'll stop beeping. And you'll notice this didn't go in all the way. That doesn't necessarily mean something went wrong. So to test it, insert your key, lock, unlock, key back out. If for some reason it does not work, you need to pull the battery pack back out of the back of it again, press the lock button on the front, re-drop it, and retry to calibrate it. Okay, before we install the cover, a couple last things to do. If you have a smart home, follow the instructions on your device to add this to your smart home. The program button's up here on the left-hand side. You press that. Usually press the link key on your smart home device. And then we've got to adjust the dip switch settings down here. Basically, we can turn off the sound. We can set it to auto lock if we want to. And we can have the light on the front flashing or not flashing. Okay, the LED switches. The first switch is for the light. So if you want the light to flash every 6 seconds, you flip that. The second switch, if you turn it on, the lock will automatically lock itself after 30 seconds. This works good for some people it doesn't. Basically, if you're not in the door, if you're carrying groceries in or something, the door's open, the lock will set, and then you have to unlock it to relock it again. I don't like that feature. Some people do, though. 3 is the audio settings. You don't want to turn that off until you're done programming your codes. So when you program your codes in here, the system beeps at you to let you know whether it was successful or not. So we're going to leave that on until we're done, and then I'm going to turn mine off just because it's annoying to me to hear it beeping. Some people like it, some people don't. Now adding a code on this is pretty simple. The thing that's not simple is deleting the codes. You can delete them pretty simply, but you have to remember all the codes you put in. This lock will take up to 30 codes. So I recommend if you're going to do more than 1 or 2, you actually write these down and keep them somewhere secure. That way if you need to remove somebody, you can remove them. If not, you have to delete all of the codes and re-enter them all. So keep a list of your codes if you're going to use multiples. So to add a code, all you need to do is press the black programming button in the middle of the back. It'll beep at you one time. You go to the front, you put in your code, and press the lock button. It should flash green, long beep at you, and you're done. So you do lock, door locks, test it, door unlocks. So it's that simple. If you wanted to add another code after that, you would again press programming, and you do your second code, lock, long beep, flashes green, flashes red, and it beeps at you like multiple times. It didn't take the code. Okay, to remove a code, I'm going to push the programming button on the back. I'm going to push lock, 4, 3, 2, 1, lock, 2 times. It's going to beep long at me like it just did. And then, okay, I've got my codes in there now, so I'm going to turn my audible off because I don't want to hear it beeping when I lock and unlock the door. I'm going to leave my LED on, that way if the battery starts to go low, it'll flash red instead of green. I've also got it programmed into my home automation system, so it'll tell me if the batteries are low on it. So the last step's putting the screws in it, so you should have 3 screws left in one package. Again, these aren't labeled like they are in the instruction manual, so you just got to kind of guess. If it says 3 screws, get the package with 3 small screws in it. We'll take our back to our plate. If you look in here, same as when we were putting it on, this little triangle in here will line up to the little triangle in here, so make sure you turn your mechanism the correct way. So whichever way the arrow's pointing should be which way the deadbolt goes. Should slide right on that easy. You've got 3 screws, 1 in each side. These don't need to be super tight, these are just to keep the cover on. Realistically, if you change your code a lot, you could put 1 in there. You could put 2 of them in there. This a little bit so my drill fit in there a little bit easier. And there's also 1 on the bottom. I'm not putting my bottom one in just because it's inconvenient for me. And I changed my codes a lot, so basically I can leave it like it is. So from the inside, when you're ready to lock the door at night, turn the lock and lock it, or set your automation system to lock it. From the outside, to lock the door, you just push lock. When you get home, you enter the code that you installed, like we did when we set it up, and the door will unlock. So the last things we need to do is rekey the lock. Some people, this sounds a little tricky to them. Some people try to hold the key in place. I used to hold the key in place thinking that it was going to fall out and everything was going to get messed up. But it's actually pretty simple. What you want to do is take the key that came with the lock. Always turn it to where my reset hole is up to the top. There's a little tiny hole there. This little brass key goes in that. When you push in, you'll hear a click. When that pushes in, it's not much of a click, but it's a tiny click. Pull the rekey tool out. And what this is doing is lifting the tumblers up. So all the tumblers are pushed up now. Pull the key that came with the lock out. Insert the key that you want to use. Once that key is in, you turn the lock. And that's all there is to key in the new lock. So you don't have to try to leave this in and get both keys in at the same time. When these first came out, I started doing that. I was wrong. So I fixed my ways, and that's the key that came with the lock. It doesn't work anymore. So that's all it is to setting up a Kwikset 914 lock. I hope you enjoyed the video. Please click like and subscribe. If you have any questions, please put them below. I'm going to do some other smaller videos on how to program, how to create codes, how to delete codes, and basically probably do one just on the dip switch settings on it. It'll take me a few days to get those uploaded, but again, thanks for watching. Please click like and subscribe. Now there's one more item I didn't cover because I was replacing a deadbolt, wasn't thinking about it. You can put a new strike plate on there, and basically this is the side that goes on the door frame side. Depending on what you have in there now, this one's a pretty thick plate. If I did change mine out, I would have to get a chisel and chisel my door a little bit deeper. So I just reused my old strike plate. It was a Kwikset lock in the first place that made life a lot easier.